This video will be a note-for-note breakdown of the guitar and bass parts that appear in the interlude of the song. It begins at roughly 2 minutes and 34 seconds. A tab sheet of each part will briefly be displayed after its respective analysis. A final demo of all parts combined will close out the video. The tuning used in this video and on the record is standard E and 440 wavelength calibration. The interlude is actually going to be 12 measures long. On guitar 1, we're going to play a 2 measure long pattern 3 times for the first 6 measures of the interlude. And of course, we're doing this with a half-time feel. We're going to start out with the B minor chord. We're going to rake this with the right hand, and we're going to let it ring out for the entire first measure as a whole note, just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. To start the next measure, we're going to go to an A major chord and rake that. That'll ring out for half of that measure as a half note. On the 3 beat, we're going to play a G major chord, again with a rake, a half note to finish up the measure. So with a 4 count lead in, I'm just going to play the first 6 measures on guitar 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Also note that after the second time we play that, that's when the vocals actually come in. To finish up the interlude on guitar 1, we're going to play another 2 measure long pattern 3 times for the final 6 measures. On the first quarter of the first measure, we're going to have a quarter note rest. We're going to have an 8th note rest on 2. We're going to come in on the upbeat after 2 with the first finger on the high E string at the 2nd fret. We'll pick this down, let it ring out as an 8th note. We're going to place the middle finger on the B string at the 3rd fret and pick this up on the 3 beat. Okay, the first finger, that note is still ringing out as we do this. Okay, the note we just played is an 8th note. On the and beat after 3, we're going to place the 3rd finger on the G string at the 4th fret and pick up again. This is another 8th note, tied to a quarter note on 4. Again, all 3 of these notes here are going to be ringing together to create a chord. So with a 4 count lead in, this is what the first measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Now for the second measure, what we're going to do is take the first finger and bar the G, B, and high E strings at the 2nd fret. On 1, we're going to pick the E string down. That's a 8th note, and that's going to ring out as we pick the B string upwards on the and beat after 1. This is another 8th note. And on 2, we're going to continue that picking motion up to the G string. Okay, all 3 of these notes are going to ring together to create a chord, just like this. 1 and 2. Okay, on 3, what we're going to do is we're going to shift up a half a step in pitch on them same 3 strings and keep barring them. We're going to pick down on 3 to the high E string, and then we'll pick up on the B string on the and beat after 3. Okay, these are 8th notes. And on the 4 beat, the final quarter note, we're going to place the middle finger on the G string at the 4th fret and pick that up. Again, these 3 strings are going to ring together to create a chord. So the second measure is going to sound like this with the 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Let's run through the 7th through 12th measures in sequence just one time with a 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Let's run through all 12 measures in sequence just one time. I won't count aloud as I play. I'm just going to give you the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is all 12 measures on Guitar 1 during the interlude. We're going to play the first 2 measures 3 times in sequence, as indicated by the repeat signs. This will be the first 6 measures. What appears to be the 3rd and 4th measures on paper are actually the 7th through 12th measures. We'll play those measures 3 times in sequence also. Guitar 2 is going to play a 4-measure long pattern that gets played 3 times. In short, that's 12 total measures. We'll begin by placing the 3rd finger on the D string at the 4th fret, the pinky on the G string at the 4th fret, and the middle finger goes on the B string at the 3rd fret. The first 4 notes that we play are going to be 8th notes, and they're going to ring together to create a chord. Okay, on the 1 beat, we're going to pick down on the G string. On the and beat after 1, we're going to pick up to the D string. On 2, we're going to pick down on the G string again. And on the and beat after 2, we're going to continue that downward sweeping picking motion to the B string. Okay, this is an 8th note that is actually tied to another 8th note on 3. In short, it rings out for a quarter of the measure. So with the 4-count lead in, this is what the first measure sounds like so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and. Okay, on the and beat right after 3, what we're going to do is we're going to shift our hand position and shift down a half step in pitch so the middle finger is on the B string at the 2nd fret. We'll pick this note upwards, and that is a 8th note tied to another 8th note on 4. In short, it rings out for a quarter of the measure. And to finish up the measure, we're going to place the 1st finger on the G string at the 2nd fret and pick that up. Again, we're going to try to let these 2 notes ring together as much as possible. Okay, this last 8th note is actually tied to an 8th note on the next measure. So with a 4-count lead in, let's just do the first measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now we've reached the 2nd measure. The 1st finger should still be on the G string at the 2nd fret, and the middle finger should still be on the B string at the 2nd fret. These notes should be ringing out from the previous measure on 1. So on the and beat after 1, what we're going to do is pick the high E string upwards, and that's actually going to be tied to another 8th note on 2. In short, it's going to ring out for a quarter of the measure. On the and beat after 2, we're going to pick the G string upwards. Okay, this time it rings out as an 8th note. On the 3 beat, what we're going to do is leave the first 2 fingers locked exactly where they're at. We're going to place the 3rd finger on the B string at the 3rd fret and play 3 8th notes, counted 3 and 4, pick down, then up, then down. We'll finish up the 2nd measure by going back to the G string. Okay, notice that the fingers are locked in position. We'll pick that up. So what I'm going to do is I'll give you a 4-count lead in and play the 2nd measure. And as part of the lead in, I'm going to add the last 8th note of the previous measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. With a 4-count lead in, let's run through the first two measures in sequence just one time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... The third measure is going to be an exact repeat of the first measure, so let's skip ahead to the fourth measure. The fourth measure is going to be almost the same as the second measure. The only difference is we're going to change two notes. On the and beat after 1, when we pick the high E string upwards, we're not going to let it ring out for a quarter measure. We're going to play 2 eighth notes instead, picked up on the and beat and down on 2. And the other thing we're going to do different is when we place that third finger on the B string and play those 3 eighth notes in the second measure, we're just going to play 4 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a 4-count lead in and play the third and fourth measures in sequence just one time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... With a 4-count lead in, let's run through the first 4 measures in sequence just one time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Let's run through the entire interlude on guitar 2 just one time. I won't count aloud as I play, I'll just give you the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4... This is all 12 measures on guitar 2 during the interlude. We're just going to play these 4 measures 3 times in sequence, as indicated by the repeat sign at the end of the 4th measure and at the beginning of the 1st measure. At the very beginning of this part of the song, there's actually going to be a 3rd guitar present. All it's going to do is play a B5 power chord, and that's where the first finger is the root note on the A string at the 2nd fret. We're going to pick it down on 1, and it's going to sustain out until it slowly fades away, just like this. During the interlude, the music is going to slow down to a halftime feel. On the bass guitar, we're going to play a 2-measure long riff pattern that will be played 5 times in sequence. This equals 10 measures to start out. We're going to use straight 8th notes for these 2 measures. We'll start out with the B note, which is the first finger on the A string at the 2nd fret. This will be the first measure. To start the second measure, for the first half of that measure, we're going to work off of the open A string. For the last half of that second measure, we'll go to the G note where the middle finger is on the low E string at the 3rd fret. With a 4-count lead in, here's what the 2-measure long pattern will sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Remember, we're going to play that 5 times. On the 11th measure, we'll go back to the B note and play 1 more measure of straight 8th notes there. On the 12th measure, we're going to go back to the open A string, but this time we've only got 4 8th notes. What we're doing is playing 1 measure of 2/4 time here. Okay, after this, the music is going to go back to a double time feel for the 13th measure. We're going to go to the same G note that we were playing, but this time we're going to play a measure full of triplets here. Okay, so we have 13 total measures in sequence. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a 4-count lead-in and play all 13 measures in sequence, but I won't count aloud as I do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. What we have here is all 13 measures on the bass guitar. We're going to play through the first 2 measures as indicated by the yellow highlight at the beginning of the first measure and the ending of the second measure. Okay, you're going to notice above the second measure there's a yellow highlight that says 1 through 5. That's how we know to repeat those 2 measures 5 times. On the 6th pass through, we're going to go directly from the first measure to what appears to be the 3rd measure on paper. That's the 6th ending. Also notice that that is 2/4 time. And for the 13th and final measure, we're back to 4/4 time and back to a double time feel.